Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Today, we are going to be talking about Strength, Isaiah 61:1. This is the single off of my upcoming album, On My Mind, which is releasing, I think it's the 12th of June. That's right. It's going to be the 12th of June on my Bandcamp, and then streaming services shortly after that. I'll keep you updated with that. But Strength, Isaiah 61:1 is the single off of On My Mind, and it's a song that sort of its genesis came from uh, uh, trying to take a piece of scripture from the Bible and setting it to music. In essence, there's a verse in Isaiah 61:1, and it's the I guess it probably would be pertinent to look up the verse. Let me see, look it up. Um, So it says, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners." That's the NIV version of Isaiah 61:1. And for me, it there's a the thing that sort of emanates from that is uh, strength. There's a lot of strength in that phrase, and that's sort of what I was going for in this. So let's check out the single. This is Strength, Isaiah 61:1. And that's the tune. Strength, Isaiah 61:1. Travis, thanks, man. Glad you dig it. I think it's a fun tune. But see, okay, so let's talk about this tune. So this tune is derived of a very specific type of melody, and I wanted something that, to me, emanated strength. Okay, so the hey Kev, thanks, man, appreciate it. Uncle Bernie, awesome. Yeah, so let's see, which side is it on? Yes, this side. So it's quintal. So what quintal means is basically you've got fifths. Okay, so on a keyboard, say, let's see if we can pull up a keyboard here. Yeah, here we go. So if we look at the keyboard here, a fifth would be like, go to the row or the organ. So a fifth, you can probably see this here. So a fifth would be like a fifth away from the pitch, and that's quintal, you know, fifth. So like a fifth away from C is be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 half steps away. So quintal is basically you go up by fifths, 1, and then a fifth away from G is D, a fifth away from D is A, etc. And you can go all the way through all 12 notes. So this melody is in the key, it's basically based on D flat quintal. So, and I just took the first 5 notes of C sharp quintal. I don't know how else to say that, but those notes are C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp. But I think I spelled them with D flat. So you push those all together, and I started on the fifth. So it's A flat, B flat, D flat, E flat, and then it starts over. And I liked the 3/4 time signature because I felt that rolled in a very specific way where it was sort of like always moving, never stopping, which also sort of reminded me of strength. These hits here were important to that strength too. They're short and very, they're all still based on this quintal sound. So everything's fitting into this quintal framework, but it's very, very much trying to sort of create this strong underpinning. It's almost like a barrier or some sort of thing trying to say this is what this is and we're not moving. So that was the whole point of that. So you've got this melody here that comes in with the marimba. Sounds like, let me get rid of this. Sounds like this. Then I just do it again. Good. So, and between that are these hits here in the piano, or in the rest of the section. So altogether, that sounds like this. Good. So that's like the first statement. That's the first quote unquote theme. Okay. So that's here at this beginning bit. And then we get to A as written on this music. By the way, this music will be available on my Bandcamp page. The whole entire scores to the album will be releasing the same day as the album. So if you're interested in dissecting this and looking into it a little bit more, it will be available on my Bandcamp, which I think if you just search up Joey Glassman on Bandcamp, that's where you'll find me. So, so that's where the strength part comes in. So I am a big fan, being a percussionist, I'm a big fan of metric tomfoolery. And what I mean by that is, so this next part, this A, the rehearsal A, or like the B section, I guess, has this very clear, we've got a rock waltz in the drum. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we've always got that 3 underneath it. And then we look here, the bass and piano have this sort of vibe, which is actually in 2 instead of 3. 1 and 1, and 1, and 1, and 1, and 1. So you've got this really interesting polyrhythmic thing going on where the drums are in 3, the piano and the bass are in 2. So it's a sort of a 3/2 hemiola thing that we're feeling. And then the marimba, to add extra crunch, is in 5. It's a 5-note based thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's all those elements separated out. First, we'll hear just the drums. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right? That's the thing. And then we've got now the bass and piano, which sound like this. 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1. Right? Pretty clear. And then we've got the marimba, which is the 5 bass thing. 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you put that all together, and it sounds like this. So in my undergrad, the reason I really love this stuff is this is really important to sort of like percussion chamber music in the orchestral or classical percussion literature. There's so much about polyrhythms and different impositions of different meters all at the same time. You see it a lot in John Cage, things like that. So that's where this is where that influence came from for me. So we've got 5 versus 2, or I guess you would think 5, or yeah, you'd think 3 versus 2 versus 2.5, basically, since we're thinking in quarter notes here. So I have this same, this is another quintally derived melody. Are you going to play for me? Organ? Oops. This is the, let's see, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th note of the D flat quintal, yeah? And then, just for a little interest, I lowered that B flat to an A natural because, I don't know, it sounded good to me. So it wasn't just for 30 seconds. Give it a little bit of something. Which to me, not to get super jive and artsy fartsy and everything, but it kind of is sort of like the struggle, right? This is 3, this is 2, this is 2.5. So we've got already some sort of a clash between the 3 different voices, or the 3 different voices. And then to add even more, the marimba has this A natural, which is a darker sound. So that's just a different vibe that I wanted to put in there. So that's that section, and we have this 4/4 bar to sort of switch where the bass and piano is feeling. So we've got 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2. And then with the 4/4, it's 1, 2, and 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 1. So it changes it to and 2, and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So at rehearsal B here, the piano sticks to this rhythm. The bass now sort of joins the drums, but almost not even in quite the same grouping. So the drums is in 3, but it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But the bass is in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can almost think of it as in 6/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. Just like that. So we still even though they're the same, these 3s are the same between the bass and the drums. It's not the same subdivision of 3. This is 3 groups of 2. This is 2 groups of 3. So even more grind there. This is still in 2, but it's offset from before. This is now in big 3. So Well, I guess it's more just in 3. So this sort of fits in with the drums a little better. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3. So the neat thing about that too is that, well, why don't we listen to these elements separately and then we'll talk about that. So first, we'll hear the bass and drums together. If I'm in the right spot. Right here. Good. So we've got that now in the bass and the drums, along with the piano. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, and 3. Right on. So we've got that, and now we also have the marimba, which sort of fits in with the bass and the drums, which is this. 2, 3. So all together, that sounds like this. Hey, Kev, man, thanks. Glad you dig it. Frank, good to see you, man. Thanks for hanging out. Jack, hope you're doing well, man. It's been a little bit. Glad to see you. Right on. So here's how that all sounds together. Good. Just like that. So we've got these competing elements all together, and I think that's, to me, that adds rhythmic interest, which is like right in my wheelhouse. That's exactly what I love. Okay, so that is that the rehearsal B. And by the way, everyone that's checking it out, thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions or anything about this while I'm going, please leave it in the comments. I will absolutely get to it. Would love to have a more engaged and discussion with everyone here. So now we go to the C section, which is just the piano now has this melody. So we've got the original melody from the beginning, which is right here. We have that now in the piano, and now we have it also in the marimba, but it starts 3/8 notes late. So in the piano, it's let's play for me. And then the marimba is 1 and 2. So those two together make a nice, interesting mosaic of the same material, just offset from each other. So those two together sound like this. So they create this interesting mosaic, and they keep going into this next section, and they're still the same material, but they're offset by 3. So we have, that sounds like this. Let me just tell you that. Good. And we stop there. And we've got the bass and drums are just holding it down here. So here's all of that put together with the bass and the drums. Good. And now we finally have a little bit of resolution rhythmically. This is F, which is a totally different sound than what we were hearing before. So the drums, I say halftime, the drums are in a much more open feel. And that drums sound like this. Whoops, they sound like this. Let's go a little bit. 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've now opened it way up. And we've introduced some new instruments. We've got organ playing now, piano still here, the bass and drums. So with the bass and the drums and everyone else, we just have this much more open, legato, luscious sound. And that sounds like this. Good. So then we have this new theme in the bells and vibraphone, and it sounds like this. So it's basically the same notes, but transposed through the changes. So all that together, this section sounds like this. Good. So we've got this feeling now. And a big thing about this album was I wanted to have harmonies that didn't always fit the typical structures that we're used to hearing. We're used to hearing like tonic predominant dominant tonic, or 1 2 5 1 we hear a lot. So this is almost, it's sort of like it divides the octave into 3 ways, sort of like John Coltrane does in Giant Steps. So we have 3 tonal centers: G flat, B flat, and D. Okay. And basically what happens is you've got the tonic, go down a half step, act as a 5 to the next key center. So G flat, G flat, now to the new, this is 5 of B flat, to the new 1. Then to the new 5, A7, then D. To the right back to the 5 of G flat. So that's where the genesis of this chord progression came from. And I think it's a really interesting way to do that, to divide the octave. I think it's a really lovely way to sound not the same as everyone else has written, you know. The melody here, this is how I love to get a lot out of so little. So the melody here is an arpeggiation of the chord. So we're in the G flat, it's just a G flat arpeggio. And then the next chord is F. So the next root is F. So we have the F here, but we have the note above and below. So we have upper neighbor F, lower neighbor F. So this is essentially what this melody means, is this. But to make it more interesting, I enclosed that F with the upper and lower neighbors like this. So when writing melodies, I find that it's really useful to have chord tones on strong beats if you can help it. And if you're not doing that, to ornament that in a way and make it obvious. So here, these are all chord tones. This is not a chord tone, but these two notes are, this F and this F. And this is clear to our ears that it's just enclosing that F. The important note is here. And then I land on the fifth of F7, okay? And then the melody just repeats itself. So it's now transposed to B flat, start on the third. Enclose that A. On the fifth here, and then now we're back in D. And this here is just taking this idea and throwing it down a fourth. So, and a fourth down from this D flat is G flat, which is the new key center. So this idea becomes a little fragment, becomes this, hinting at the key center we're about to get to in G flat. And then the second, I don't remember who said it, but there's a really famous composer that said, you know, when you're writing music, you repeat yourself. So we do it again, but to keep things a little bit interesting, I harmonize it. So this melody here, I just add the chord tone that's two members below it. So if B flat is the third, I put the fifth below it. So keep this here in sixths, in minor sixth all the time. We're enclosing the third here. And then we have the fifth, which the root going down here. So, and we just put that through the keys. And then one more time here. And this is where it changes. This just brings us back down to that quintal thing. This is just stepwise down, starting on the third and the the fifth and the third of D flat 7. Up. Just like that. All right, so let's hear now this big open section in its entirety now that we've sort of broken that down. This is starting on rehearsal F. F. Just like that. And now, after this section, we've got the repetition of the beginning, but we've added a third member. So we still have the obfuscation of the meter a little bit, but we have the piano comes in, then the vibes come in a count later, then the marimba, a measure later, and then the marimba comes in a measure later, just like this. Vibes, marimba. And that's a lot of folks would call that a round, like how you sing row, row, row your boat. You sing the same material, but you all start on a different part. So that's it. That's that. So now what I wanted here was a big opening of what's going on here. And the chords here are all derived at a very specific thing. The interesting thing about this tune, just as an aside, I'm sort of a harmony geek. I love harmony, and I love having sounds, you know, that sound rich and full. Like something like this. But for me, what was really special about this harmony was changing the chords, but keeping the bass the same. And for some reason, to me, the triads had all the richness it needed. So what we have here is we're going through those first four notes of the melody at the very beginning. These first four notes, A flat, B flat, D flat, E flat, we're just going downwards. Each one starting on E flat, then D flat, E flat, then D flat, then B flat, then A flat. And we're going through all of the triads that have those notes in as one of their members. So for example, with E flat in the bass, you put A flat as the root. E flat, now E flat can act as the fifth. If E flat acts as the fifth, it's A flat. Okay? And then if E flat acts as the third, it's respelled really as D sharp or B. So the piano part, and that goes through all of those keys. And the piano part plays that right here. So what's interesting about that is just that we're using those bass notes in different ways, and it gives us a different sound in mind. So if we base everything off E flat, even though we're still staying in those sounds, even though we're still saying triadically, our scale mode math changes. So E flat, when we're improvising, we can think of just Ionian, which is just major. But now A flat comes in as the triad, and you can introduce D flat, or making it E flat mixolydian. So E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, and E flat. And then now after that point, we have B, which makes the sound totally different. It gives us a much darker sound. And again, I'm just trying to eke as much out of as little information as I can. So we have now what's called E Phrygian, which is the third scale mode. So it's playing B major starting on E flat. So E flat, E, G flat, A flat, B natural, D flat, E flat. So if I play those in succession, so those changing in the chord scale math, I think is what, for me, made it sound still convincing, even though they're just triads. Because this color change, especially from here to here to here, that's a huge sound difference to me. Sounds so different than. So I just thought that was so cool. So the piano opens up and introduces this idea, and we just go through, like I said, each note from that beginning melody. So it starts on E flat, D flat, then it goes to B flat and A flat. And that's our melody. And then we need to have some sort of transition. So we have all of these chords, and I stick to E flat and D flat here. We've got those different triads, and we go through just one after another. And brings us back home. And this is, I wanted the vibes to have a really big feature here, so that's what I did. So enter piano solo, then vibes solo. Here's that color change. Yeah. Here are the vibes. I wanted majesty. And this next part came up because I had no idea how to cover all of these changes so quickly and make it sound convincing. So I just took a very, very common piece of jazz language, 1, 2, 3, 5, and through each of those keys. So E flat, then B, then A flat, then D flat, then A, then G flat. Hey, Uncle Bernie, thanks so much. You too, you too. So I went through that and just did that. And I put it in 4 tuplets. I don't know how to say that. Quartuplets. I don't know how to say that. But that's another thing. I like to change how this is thought of. So dotted eighth notes are divided into 3 eighth notes, basically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, and 2, and 3, and. But if we take out those subdivisions and just clap, we can now subdivide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it creates this really neat rhythm that sounds like this. That's a 4/3 polyrhythm. Are you sensing a theme yet? 4/3. So let's hear from this bit, and then we'll just blow through the vibe solo. Here's that piece of material again. Let me get to the piece of music where it is. Right here. Then we do it again. Oh, I guess I didn't do the repeat here. In the recording, I did not do the repeat. So we move on from here. This material should look really familiar in the piano. This is right here. This is A, but the marimba part's now just in the piano. That's all it is. So here in the piano, we have that 2 verses 5 or 2 verses 2.5. Piano player's got to be really good for this one, rhythmically sound. And then the bass is also covering the 2. The drums is covering 3. And sounds like. And that's the end of the vibe solo. Right there. And then we go back to our material. I think it was, in the music, I think it was letter F. We just hear this again. And this is sort of the melody out. Start back on our big open material with the organ, the piano, vibes, Glock, drums, bass. Like this. Instead, it sounds like this. And then we just hear the opening material again. I said we just hear the opening material again. Here. Good. So now, most folks, I mean, you could just end the tune right there. The tune's over. We've got all the material. We've got all the information. It's done. But this song is sort of a conquest for me to write good music, good Christian music, because for me, sometimes the contemporary Christian music is not super engaging. So I wanted a through line between all of these tunes that I'm going to be writing for this material. So we have a new theme. To be honest, I don't know where this theme came from and how I came up with it, but it sort of came to me. It starts mostly with an arpeggiation of B flat minor, and then it just walks around key center to key center, or I'm sorry, chord tone to chord tone. So 3 1 5 5, 3 1 1, 2 notes down to 5, and then we just do the 5 of B flat. So here's that 5. This whole melody so far is all diatonic, which is surprising to me. Five. This is where some tomfoolery comes in. So we have F triad, D flat triad, B flat triad, and then a G flat minor triad. So I wanted to keep, for some reason, I had this idea of keeping this material triadic. And I wanted to have interesting chord sounds, but not have them written as that. So like you could think of an F, a D flat over F, you could think of that as F Aeolian, or you could call that F minor with a flat 6, but instead I just wrote D flat over F. You could think of this B flat over F as an F7 sus, but I just wrote B flat over F. And then you could think of this as an F7 alt, but I just wrote it as G flat minor over F. For some reason, I wanted to do that. And then at the end here, the melody is just sort of staying in that, just reaffirming that B flat. And then I have this same tomfoolery again, where I take the B flat and repurpose it as different chord tones. So B flat as 1. B flat as 5, E flat minor over B flat as 3, G minor, then B flat as the 7th in a major 7, then B flat. Because who doesn't love a Picardy third at the end? We got all this B flat minor stuff, so it ends in major. So let's hear this part. This is letter N, the coda to Strength, Isaiah 61:1. And that's the tune. That's Strength, Isaiah 61. I like the tune. I've not heard anything like it, and that was part of my goal, was to create this whole On My Mind thing. You know, it's came from music that I've been writing over the past couple of months, but it's always been music I've sort of been reluctant to release, because I thought it was music that wouldn't be engaging to folks. But you know, I was really inspired by folks that just sort of write music and just write good music. They don't think about trying to fit in convention. They don't try to think about making something that's marketable within reason. Well, folks like that really inspire me are like Jacob Collier. If you listen to his arrangement of Moon River, some of the harmonies he's using are not consumable, but they're absolutely stunning, and he gets millions and millions of views on his videos every time he releases one. He's a very popular artist that does really deep music. So let me get off my soapbox. That's where this came from. In Strength, Isaiah 61:1 is just one iteration of that. So let's talk really briefly about the Logic session here. I'm really interested in trying to make this sound good. So My general concept, which I got from a class that I took in my undergrad, sort of a recording class for non-majors, was if you've got music has got like, let's think this is like a like an EQ graph. Okay, so these are all frequencies that music oscillates at, right? So anywhere from 20 all the way to 20 hertz all the way up to 20,000 hertz. And that's what gives music pitch and timbre and everything like that. So each instrument in this mix has its own little piece of this carved out. Okay, so this is the piano, and you'll notice the piano, when I play it on its own, doesn't sound very good. Sounds very thin, hollow. But there's a reason for that, because the piano in this mix does not need all these low frequencies. What needs the low frequencies is the bass. So if we play these two together, you'll notice the piano doesn't sound empty. It just, you hear the bass better. So I'll sort of flick between the EQ on and off. I'll turn the EQ off now. Suddenly the bass is more hidden. You don't hear it as clearly. But if I turn the EQ back on, muddy, clear. And that's sort of the idea with how I equalized all this, okay? Every instrument has its own little space of the aural spectrum. And not all of them, they're not all necessarily a unique space like the piano shares with the vibes and the marimba sometimes. And the marimba sometimes shares with the bass. But it's not just it's not just a free-for-all, and it would sound like a muddy mess. So this whole album was recorded on 2 pencil condensers, one that I'm using right now, right here actually, and another one that's just its pair. So these are a pair of pencil condensers by a company called Octava, and I use that with a Focusrite 2i2. So it's always 2 pencil condensers. That's all I use, and MIDI instruments. So I've got this 60 key MIDI controller right here that I used as well for all of the green bits you see, except for the kick, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So, you know, with the marimba and the vibes, I just mic'd them stereo pair, spaced. So you get a nice image, a nice stereo image of what's going on. Moves left to right really nicely. As I go up the board, it goes to the left. As I go down the board, it goes to the right. And that's it. So this album, to me, is a testament that you don't need a whole bunch of gear to create something worthwhile and convincing, which I hope this is for all of you. I have certainly enjoyed doing it. So, like I said, the drums I recorded as well, no different, with just those 2 mics. And so what I did, I had just a normal 4-piece drum set. It was a 22-inch bass drum, 12-inch rack tom, a 12-inch floor tom, a 14-inch snare drum, and I had 2 to 3 cymbals and then a hi-hat. And I had one overhead over the drums, and then I had one of the condenser mics as a kick drum mic. And that was just going in right into the portal of my 22-inch kick. And that was really interesting because condenser microphones are extremely sensitive. So you'll notice here I have this kick track muted, and then I have a green one right here. And I'll tell you why. So these microphones that I have, the capsules unscrew off the front of them, and then you can put in a 10 dB pad. So it makes it 10 decibels less sensitive, which is good when you're having a high decibel output instrument. So the kick pushes a lot of air, and that was hitting right into this microphone, and it sounded like this. And that's not a terribly inspiring kick sound. I tried really hard, get rid of all sorts of garbage, all this nasty stuff here, tried to compress it, tried to make it sound at all convincing, and I couldn't. I simply couldn't. So Logic has this really unique feature, at least I think it's unique, where you can take a drum track and it will turn that drum track into a MIDI track, and you can turn it into one of their sounds. The much more studio appropriate sound than my sound that I came out with. So that is a super useful feature. And you'll notice, so with the drum tracks, I've got 3 active tracks. I've got the kick track, the drum overhead, and the snare drum. For the snare drum, what I did, I just copied the overhead track and I gated everything out but the snare. And it's just, the gate is tuned just so that you only hear the snare drum from that track. And it gives it a pretty nice sound, I think. So each track, almost every track has an EQ on it. Almost every track, I think every track has EQ, but almost every track has compression. My general process for compression is what I learned, which is basically let me pull up a compressor so you can see. The threshold is compressing a certain amount. Your ratio is set to that amount, and then you have makeup gain set to that amount. So this should be set up for a 333. So that means the threshold is compressing 3 dB. The ratio is set to 3:1, I guess 3.1 to 1, and then it makes up 3 dB. It's right around 3. The big hits go a little higher. And that's the process. Now, I futzed around a lot with the attack and release timing. If you open up the attack timing just such, then you'll be able to get the sound of the stick or the mallet, the actual articulation of the thing as it hits the instrument, and then it'll compress down everything else, which gives it a little extra bite. You can hear that a lot on, let's see, where did I do that? You can hear that. Do that on the vibes. Nope, where did I do it? I think I did it on drum overhead. Yeah, see, the drum overhead's a little more open, a little slower attack speed. So it gives it. You can hear the rim shot, you can hear the stick and the rim come off, and then the drums, the rest of it compresses. Just sort of a rock setup that gives it an extra bit of bite, so it cuts through the rest of the mix like this. Right on. For the drums, I have this extra thing going on for the whole drum, so they're all sending to the drum track, and then that drum bus is also sending to the reverb, and they're also sending to what I call the squash bus. So the squash bus is just to get a little extra bite out of all those drums. You can see here it's compressing like crazy. And it just gives that little extra edge to give the drums a little bit more cut through the mix. That's how I did that. Yeah, and that's my basic process for EQing all this and doing the post-production. It was just EQing everything out of the way of each other, adding a little compression. For the mallet instruments, I added some delay to give it a sense of space. Just to give it a little bit of extra. Everything's got a little bit of reverb on it, just so that it's not drier than, something that's really dry. And that is Strength, Isaiah 61:1. Just a little reminder, this whole album releases a week from yesterday, the 12th of June. On My Mind, something I'm really proud of. It was a sort of a COVID-19 project. I worked really hard on this one, and I really, really hope you check it out and you're really into it. And if you like what you hear, consider either downloading it on my Bandcamp, and then also consider downloading the scores, the complete score, so that you can just get a deeper inside look of what's going on. So On My Mind, June 12th on my Bandcamp, and then soon afterwards on all of the major streaming services. So thank you so much for joining me on this live stream. I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope you got some questions answered, some ideas for some compositions you have, and if you've ever considered endeavoring on creating your own album, your own recorded music, hopefully this gave you some sort of insight on how to even get started on that. So I hope you enjoyed, and I really appreciate you hanging out with me. Again, the 12th of June, On My Mind releases on my Bandcamp. Search me up, bandcamp.com. Search up Joey Glassman. You'll find it there. I hope to see you all soon. Thank you very much, and have a good one.